Good day, friends. It's Frankie Rose. I hope you're doing well today. Before we get into our case, I think we should get the business done. If you could hit the like, the bell for notifications, and if you're not subscribed, well, come on and join us. Hit subscribe as well. And if you don't mind sharing, I would truly appreciate it. And I appreciate you. So, this is the sad story of Sallie and Huckstepp, and how she basically brought down the criminal element within the law enforcement in New South Wales. So, let's get into it. So it was a man walking his dog through Centennial Park in Sydney on the morning of February 7th, 1986, when he noticed the body of a woman floating in Bugsby Pond. So basically, police had to row out to bring her back to land. And when the detectives rolled her over, they realized that it was 31-year-old Sallie Ann Huckstepp, who had been born on December 12th, 1954. So Sallie Ann was a sex worker, a whistleblower, a heroin addict, and eventually an Australian raider, and also the victim of homicide. She basically came to attention in 1981 when she spoke out about the police corruption in Sydney, Australia. Sallie Ann basically knew her days were numbered when she went on 60 Minutes in 1981 and accused Detective Sergeant Roger Rogerson of being a cold-blooded killer. He's somebody I will probably do another video on. He's basically interesting, I guess you would have to say. So basically, what she says is that Roger Rogerson cold-bloodedly killed her boyfriend, heroin dealer Warren Lanfranchi, in broad daylight on a Saturday afternoon. What Warren had done is he had robbed another dealer, and that dealer was selling heroin for Roger Rogerson. So when Warren found out whose drugs they were, he freaked out. He was terrified. So what Warren did is he asked standover man Nettie Smith to help him work out a price with Roger Rogerson. So the plan was for Roger Rogerson to point Warren in the direction of a robbery, and that was to help pay for some of the money that was owed. The heroin that he took was about $37,000 at the time. You can imagine what it would be worth now. It was a large amount. So at that point, Roger Rogerson had a sterling reputation in the force. He was basically slated to potentially become the next police commissioner. What Rogerson did is he arranged for Nettie to drop Warren Lanfranchi at Dangar Place in Chippendale, where Rogerson was there waiting for him with 18 of his police officers. So he then shot Warren Lanfranchi twice. He later claimed it was self-defense. So the subsequent investigation that found Rogerson may not have acted in self-defense, but he had not done anything wrong. So Roger Rogerson was basically commended for his bravery, even though there was witnesses that knew that the shots from him proved that they were a few seconds apart, not two fast shots, proving that it was more of a hit. Warren Lanfranchi was literally the third man that Roger Rogerson had shot dead in public in the past 5 years. It was only a few days after Sallie Ann did the 60 Minutes interview that she went to the police headquarters with her father and detailed a large string of allegations against the New South Wales police. The claims did include that Roger Rogerson had executed her boyfriend and had stolen the $10,000 that Warren had agreed to pay Roger Rogerson. Sallie also gave details of payments she personally had made to the Vice and Drug Squad detectives for basically the past 10 years while she was working as a sex worker on Darlinghurst Road. So Sallie was born to a middle-class Jewish family and grew up in Sydney's Australian suburbs. She went to the exclusive Dover Heights High School, but she did have some trouble at home. She didn't get along with her stepmother, so she got a little out of hand. At 14, she went to Minda Remand Center in Lidcombe, and when she got released from there, she found a job at as a waitress at the King's Cross Club Whiskey A Go-Go. So King's Cross is a fairly notorious area as far as drugs and criminal activity go. It was there that she got addicted to heroin, and basically she started working the streets to support both her and her boyfriend's habits. So it was through her association with the Sydney underworld that Sallie became aware that the New South Wales police were heavily involved in criminal activities and that Roger Rogerson was basically a kingpin. In 1980, Roger Rogerson was moved to the Darlinghurst police station, and he was a star detective of the armed hold-up squad. At the time, the heroin market was going through the roof in King's Cross, so the opportunity to make some extra cash was pretty hard to resist. Nettie Smith was one of the top heroin distributors as well in the city. He was raking the dough in. He and Roger Rogerson formed kind of a mutually beneficial friendship or association. Nettie Smith eventually became a whistleblower in the early 1990s, testifying at the Independent Commission Against Corruption that the armed hold-up squad detectives had been supplying information that enabled him to carry out a string of hold-ups. The cops were giving him the places to go. When he did this, he did refuse to name Roger Rogerson during the hearing. So Sallie had always lived kind of a charmed and tragic life. She basically shot to stardom after her 60 Minutes appearance, coming across as articulate and engaging, and she had a significant impact in alerting the public to the high level of the New South Wales Police. And then at that point, Penguin Publishers gave her an advance to write an autobiography, and the author was Richard Neville. And he arranged for her to move into artist Martin Sharp's house. Many believe that because she did get a lot of attention with that 60 Minutes interview, that was basically why she wasn't knocked off right away. But they did kill her young, 31 years old, and a single mom. By the time her body was drug out of that water, 5 years had passed, and she was back using and working the streets. No one was paying attention to her anymore. So on the night she was murdered, Sallie received a phone call from her heroin dealer, Warren Richards, and he was an associate of Roger Rogerson's and Nettie Smith. She told her roommate that she had to go out for a few minutes, but would be back within 10 minutes. That was the last time she was seen alive. Nettie Smith ended up serving 2 life sentences for beating a tow truck driver to death and for shooting brothel keeper Harvey Jones. Police suspected that Smith was connected with a string of drug-related murders, so they bugged his cell and got his cellmate to chat with him. Sure enough, Nettie bragged about killing 7 people, one of which was Sallie Ann. And he explained how he strangled her to death, and held her head under the water. And he confessed to her body being exhumed from, his confession is what led to her body being exhumed from the Rockwood Cemetery for DNA testing. So Smith later claimed he'd made that story up, and he knew he was being recorded. He went to trial for her murder, but was acquitted in 1999. During a 2005 interview with John Dale, he's the author of Huckstepp, A Dangerous Life, Nettie Smith claimed to have been at home with his wife the night that Sallie Ann died. He said Roger Rogerson wanted Huckstepp dead because she was bugging him by calling him up and leaving messages that he was a dog. He said it was an associate of Roger Rogerson who helped or who strangled Sallie Ann, performing the deed to get on the good side of Roger Rogerson. He said the man had never been to prison. Nettie Smith added that the reason Sallie was left floating in the pond is Roger Rogerson wanted to leave a message, his just desserts. So Roger Rogerson also had an alibi for the night of the murder. He was drinking with prosecutor Mel Spence in Maryland's pub. But Rogerson had no alibi when he stood trial a few years back for the murder of 20-year-old student Jamie Gayo, and he was actually caught on CCTV footage. That June, he was found guilty of murdering Gayo during a drug deal at a Padstow storage facility back in May 2014. In September, he was sentenced to life in prison. Sallie Ann's murder still to this day remains unsolved. She was an incredible individual. She was addicted. She had many problems, but she still had some core values, and may she rest in peace. Her daughter's grown up and has, a very good view of what happened. I believe she was 12 when her mother died. And she does go public and speak periodically. So that is the story of Sallie Ann Huckstepp. She was amazing. Rest in peace. So now I want to thank you for spending this time with me. I truly appreciate you. And I do believe I'm going to do something on Roger Rogerson and Nettie Smith at one point. They're very interesting individuals and gives you a little bit of background as to what this was all about. Sallie Ann having to sadly die so tragically. Anyways, for now, I'm going to say cheers, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, friends.